Good evening, everybody. The Board of Education just completed executive session in the superintendent's office. We began at 6 o'clock this evening at 104 Gray Street here in West Caldwell. The purpose of that meeting was to discuss personnel, litigation, miscellaneous, and old business matters. The meeting had been advertised and was compliant with the Open Public Meeting Act and NJSA 10:4-6, which is also known as Sunshine Law. The matters discussed will be made public when confidentiality is no longer required, and formal action pursuant to said discussion shall take place only at a meeting to which the public has been invited. We are now ready to begin the public meeting at approximately 7:05 p.m. The meeting has been advertised. Sorry about that. The meeting is compliant with the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10:4-6, which is also known as the Sunshine Law. Notices have been sent to the Progress, Caldwell, New Jersey, Star Ledger in Newark, New Jersey, Tap Into West Essex, and has also been posted here at the Board of Education Business Office and has been shared with the clerks of both Caldwell and West Caldwell for posting. Brian, can I ask you to take the roll, please?
Yes. A student representative, Claire Kieran.
Here.
Mr. Diambola.
Here.
Mr. Elko.
Here.
Ms. Getty. Ms. Grosso.
Here.
Mr. Cipoletti.
Here.
So 4 members present, 1 absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Brian. I'd just like to comment, Ms. Getty unfortunately has COVID, so please keep her in your thoughts. Would we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brian, do we have any communications to share?
None.
Thank you. Dr. Conklin, the superintendent's report.
Yes, I'd like to ask Ryan Anderson from 8th grade, House of Responsibility, to come up to the microphone. Ryan's going to tell us all the great things going on at the middle school. So thank you, Ryan.
Hello, can you hear me? All right. All right, it's my pleasure to be here, and good evening, Dr. Conklin and Board of Education members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you all tonight. My name is Ryan Anderson, and I am the House Leader for the House of Responsibility at GCMS. Recently at our middle school, there have been a plethora of different activities and events that the students have had the opportunity to participate in. Started off, the houses hosted an after-school ultimate football tournament. What is ultimate football, you may ask yourself? It's a mix of football and handball, where you use football end zones, but you can't run with the ball, hence the handball part. Anyway, the House of Integrity was the ultimate winner of that tournament. Fast forward a bit. On Halloween, the students were on the hunt for 3 wanted jack-o'-lanterns that were placed around the school. Students had a lot of fun searching for the wanted jacks throughout the day. Our 3 winners were Fisher Iverson, Sierra Long, and Quinn Corey. You can see their picture on the GCMS Instagram if you follow the GCMS Instagram at CWCGCMS. So some upcoming news. GCMS is hosting the district-wide Thanksgiving food drive to honor our late principal, Mr. Brown. Each school is responsible for different food items, and it will end on November 14th. Service leadership also held a kickball fundraiser, today actually, with all proceeds going to the Jim Brown Make a Difference Scholarship Fund. Our next advisory meeting is on Wednesday, November 16th. Our violence prevention lesson will be on countering hate speech online. Students will explore our thoughts about hate speech, why we think it happens, and ways to respond to said hate speech. And also another thing coming up is Hoopapalooza. Hoopapalooza is an annual basketball tournament at the middle school. This is the current 18th year running annually for this tournament. So the tournament will culminate on November 23rd on our house day, where the winning student teams are going to play against the teachers. So thank you, Dr. Conklin and Board of Education members. Thank you for your time, and any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to ask Ms. Jones to come up to the microphone. Is she here? here. Oh, sorry, I can't see you over there. If you guys could swing around, we're going to lower the film. We're going to have a little presentation about where the district is in performance from the 21-22 school year.
Thank you, Dr. Conklin, and to the board for inviting me here tonight to share with the community our overview of our assessment results from last school year. Just don't worry, I've been told to be brief this evening, so the entirety of this presentation will be posted on our website. There are a lot of slides and a lot of information, but you'll have time if you'd like to review it later. I'll be clicking through some of these slides as quick clicks just to make sure I respect your time, while also being transparent about how our district has performed in ELA, math, and science. So as context, in 2021, the board approved a 5-year plan that was rooted in data and created by a committee of teachers, administrators, families, and board members. Last year, we completed our first year of that plan, and tonight I will be sharing updates on how we did. This presentation includes lots of information, so again, feel free to peruse it, and if you have questions after reviewing it in its entirety, you can contact your school principal, teachers, or me. I'd like to start by sharing some highlights from last school year. The strategic interventions we implemented as a district successfully prevented the sharp decline in student performance that many districts experienced as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, our grades 1 through 6 readers are progressing towards our ambitious goals. Our professional development is positively impacting teaching and learning district-wide, and we have enhanced transparency and family partnerships in support of students' academic growth. So let's get into the specifics of English Language Arts, which we refer to as ELA. Last year, upon beginning the school year, approximately 49% of our students in grades 1 through 6 started the year on reading level, as measured by TC running records. Despite continued challenges from the pandemic, we set ambitious goals and provided high-impact interventions that worked. The percent of students on reading level in grades 1 through 6 grew by 12%. Our goal was ambitious, and we are incredibly proud of our teachers and our students' success. Our goal is incremental growth over the next 4 years of our plan. In addition to the reading level assessments, we administer benchmarks throughout the school year to identify how students are doing in mastering state standards and to predict how they will do on the end of the year state test. Those Linkit benchmarks have proven to be highly predictive of and correlated to student performance on the NJSLA state test. You'll see, for example, in the middle column, that 60% of our third graders last year demonstrated proficiency on Linkit, and that same percent of students passed the state test in ELA last year. This correlation is important because our assessments can inform our instruction and align with state standards. In parentheses, you'll see underneath the percentage of students passing within our district, the state's percentage for proficiency. And you will see across all contents and grades for NJSLA, despite the many challenges the pandemic continued to present in schools, our students surpassed state proficiency on the NJSLA. We aspire always to exceed that bar. Continuous incremental growth is our focus as a district. The elementary goal was displayed earlier, and I won't read aloud our secondary goal, but we're looking for incremental growth across student achievement from the beginning of the year to the end of the year on our Linkit assessment. These are some of those quick clicks I warned you about. This will show you the distribution across levels of performance. There are 5 levels of performance. On top, you'll be able to see across grade levels the distribution across those levels, and then underneath that, that's the same distribution by achievement level by the state. You'll have the opportunity to review ELA achievement and growth by grade over multiple years, disaggregated by race, gender, and program. Additional data sources include our English PSAT data, our SAT data for our seniors from last year, and the NJGPA, which is the New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment, disaggregated by race and program. Posted here are just some of the many things that we're proud of that we accomplished as a district. We're proud to have trained teachers and seen their effective implementation of evidence-based programs like Phonics First and guided reading. We're proud to have systems in place now to assess and monitor student progress in mastering state standards, with our staff regularly analyzing multiple measures to inform instruction. We're proud of our teacher-developed teacher learning teams that provide choice and voice in professional learning pathways. As a community, we should celebrate our teachers, our coaches, our interventionists, principals, vice principals, and most importantly, our students. The last half of the slides include data on student performance in math and science, and you'll see the continued theme that our students outperform the state in NJSLA across all grades and content areas, the distribution across levels of performance in elementary school, middle, high school, and again, the New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment. Our PSAT data for math, our SAT data for math, and the same displays you saw for ELA in terms of longitudinal data by grade, disaggregated by race, gender, program, and our year 2 goals. So clearly we have much room for growth in math. We haven't seen the overall COVID slide, however, that most of the rest of the state has seen and was expected. That said, math was identified as an area for improvement. We aligned resources and supports, including our new math supervisor consultant, a director of secondary education with a strong STEM background, curriculum revision and professional development, a new textbook, additional coaching for staff and students, and we've set 5-year goals around student performance, specifically in secondary math. These are some of the strategies that we've used and that I mentioned for our math development. And finally, our science data, which again, across all grades, students in grades 5, 8, and 11 were assessed for NJSLA science. We outperformed the state. And you'll see the displays as compared to the state distribution, disaggregated by race, gender, program, and how we're using that data to inform our instruction and our curriculum. Dynamic Learning Map, DLM assessments, are administered for a small subset of students with significant cognitive disabilities for whom the state assessments are not appropriate, even with accommodations. We had 12 students in our district who were eligible, 5 who are in district, and those students scored from emerging to at target across 5 levels of performance. So again, I will close. Hopefully I've been as brief as possible while giving you all this information by celebrating the work that our teachers, our administrators, and our students have accomplished despite all of the impacts of the pandemic. While we continuously aim to grow together as a community to our fullest potential, we're proud of the work that we've done. We want to thank the board, our students, staff, and families for all you do to support us. Additional questions and comments. If you have specific questions about your child's scores, please refer to the October 7th assessment memo. We gave some detailed information about how to access those scores. And for any specific questions about your child or your child's classroom or school, feel free to contact your child's teacher or principal. I included in the presentation a couple other resources as a parent that I think would be helpful as well for anybody with additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. You're done. President, I know there were some questions last week, some legal questions especially that I wasn't really able to respond to, so I asked the board attorney, Mr. Doug Silvestro, to come to help us respond to some of those legal questions that were raised.
Great.
I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Silvestro.
Great, thank you, Doug. All right, thank you, Dr. Conklin. Thank you, Mr. President. Board members, I know that, and you guys are not alone in this. As some of you may know, my firm represents a good 60 school districts across the state. So this issue of the new health curriculum that's being rolled out this year is not unique to Caldwell-West Caldwell. This is a state mandate that is being implemented statewide this year. It was delayed a couple of years due to COVID and some other state actions. This stems from legislation passed on the state level and some directives issued from the State Department of Education being mandated as part of standard curriculum updates for the school district. So this is something that you guys as a local have had to implement, but I know that every community's had kind of variations on some of the more general questions and some specific questions that have come up. And as Dr. Conklin indicated, he wanted me to come here and just kind of address publicly, but for the board's sake, to address some of the questions that have come up about some legalities involving the new curriculum and the new state standards. One of the questions that I understand at a prior board meeting, there was a question about the state obscenity laws and whether or not teaching the new state standards and implementing a local curriculum that would change the health or sex ed curriculums would somehow violate obscenity laws. The answer to that is no, but I'll be a little bit more specific than that. Just so we're all talking about the same things. Obviously, every family, every individual can have a different understanding of what they personally consider to be obscene. But when you're going to ask the lawyer's going to tell you what the legal definition of those things is. So for someone to be found guilty of a crime of sharing obscene materials with a minor, it's only a crime when a person shows a minor obscene material with the knowledge or purpose to arouse, gratify, or stimulate themselves or another. So to be clear, if someone shares obscene material with a minor, even if that material is objectively obscene, it is not a crime unless the intention behind sharing that material is to stimulate some kind of sexual gratification.
Please keep your comments to yourself. We will have time for you guys to comment afterwards. Excuse me?
We're gonna need lots of.
We're gonna have a lot of time.
That's fine. Please keep your comments to yourself at this point.
My family too.
Please keep your comments to yourself at this point.
You got it.
Or you can leave if you can.
Okay, you got it.
Okay.
So also, when we talk about what obscene material actually is, obscene material is material that must emit sensuality with sufficient impact to concentrate prurient interest on a sexual activity or an anatomical area, layman's terms, private parts. Prurient interest, for those who aren't in the legal know, means lustful or with sexual desire. So again, the material that is being deemed obscene to be obscene under the law actually has to be designed with the effect of specifically to arouse someone or for a sexual interest. For example, this is why in anatomy and biology you can have a diagram of a nude individual and it is not by definition obscene, because the purpose of that material is, again, from everyone will have a chance during public comment to make their comments. But so simply displaying or talking about parts of the body is not in it of itself as a matter of law obscene. Sharing that information with students who may be minors is not by law obscene, just so the board is aware. There was another question that came up. This has been coming up more statewide, this issue of opt-in versus opt-out. It's not really an option in terms of choosing one or the other when it comes to the school district. Let me explain. As we talked about earlier, the state mandates the standards by which your local curriculum must be centered and kind of high-level points that your curriculum must teach through lesson plans delivered in all of the grades for every subject area. With health and family and sexual education specifically, there is a state law that says any parent of any child in your schools, if they object to some part of that education, again, health, family, or sexual education, if a parent objects to that, moral reason, a religious reason, or they just strongly believe that it shouldn't be taught to their child, they have, under the law, the right to opt their child out. That parent has to, by statute, submit a signed statement indicating that some portion of the lesson or the curriculum offends their beliefs, and their child is to be required to be, based on that consent, opted out of that material. The reason why it is not an opt-in, where everybody who wants their child to receive sexual education to receive it, the state law requires you as a public school district in the state of New Jersey to educate all students unless they opt out of this material. So the standard by law is that this must be taught. Parents, as individuals, are given the right to opt their specific kids out of the instruction. So another way of putting this is that essentially if you want to consider an opt-in, by sending your child to public school, you're opting into the curriculum, including sex ed. For this topic, again, health, family, or sex education, you do have the right to opt your child out. Now, note that you do not have the right to opt your child out of just every other lesson. You can't say that algebra offends my moral sensibilities, I'm opting my kid out. Your kid will get an F if he doesn't do the algebra, whether you like algebra or not, and they're in the algebra class. There is a statutory exception for these areas where parents have that right by law to opt their child out. It is one of the very, very small areas where they have the right to do so. Those were the legal questions that were posed to my office. I don't know, board members, Dr. Conklin, if there's anything else you wanted me to touch on. I know obviously probably more is going to come up in public comment. I do want to say, the question when originally posed to me about the obscenity issue and the opt-in, opt-out issue, somebody said, well, can someone sue us over this? And those of you who spend any time with me know my go-to line is, well, anyone can sue you for anything at any time. So yes, you could get sued for just about anything. I'm here to tell you that if someone sued you, for example, claiming that you violated state obscenity laws for teaching state-mandated curriculum, they would not win.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Dr. Conklin?
If I have a second, I'd like to remind everyone that I appreciated their attendance, and the staff appreciated your attendance as well at Lincoln, Washington, and Wilson. It was nice to have questions and be able to engage in a dialogue with the families and hopefully provide some of the answers they had questions to. We are continuing to invite families to provide us feedback at Jefferson, Grover Cleveland Middle School, and James Caldwell High School. On November 15th at 6 o'clock, we'll be at Jefferson School. November 17th at James Caldwell High School at 6 o'clock. November 21st at Grover Cleveland Middle School. Those RSVPs will go out to the family members specifically assigned to those schools. We ask that the parents of those schools are the ones that attend those programs. We have limited space, so we really want to limit it to the parents of those students of those schools. At those, we'll have a discussion and some questions and answers. Really at these school-based meetings to really find out and engage parents in an ongoing conversation. If you have additional questions beyond that, I'd ask that you reach out to your principal or the health and physical education teachers. They're the best equipped to answer specific questions. Thank you.
Great, moving on to the President's report. I would just like to remind everybody on the 18th, 19th, and 20th of this month, so in about 2 weeks, the Radium Girls play will be conducted at the high school. Next week, we are going to invite the director to come to give a summary of kind of what that production will be. And again, it's the 18th at 7:30, the 19th and 20th at 2 p.m. We do not have committee reports this evening. Next week, we will approve minutes, so we're going to move into public comments on the agenda items only at this time, and then we'll move into public comments on other items. So for public comments on the agendas, we just need to follow, they're governed by the following. Participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and must preface their comments by an announcement of their name and address. Statements shall be limited to 3 minutes duration and may only address items which are on the agenda at this particular time. Participants may speak no more than once on the same topic until all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard, and all statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. Are there any questions or comments at this point on the agenda? Okay, we are going to just move into open questions at this stage. So if anybody has any questions on anything you'd like to speak on, please come up to the podium. The same rules will follow, but we will be holding everybody 3-minute durations this evening. So if anybody has any questions or comments, please feel free.
I feel like I'm a veteran to this already. Jessica Crown, 183 Forest Avenue. After the last meeting, I did some research on the law behind the standards, and while we have somebody representing here on the legality of everything, I wanted to know if you've reviewed the standards and if they are consistent with the law, that the standards are supposed to be following, I guess, because they don't really. There's an LGBTQ law, and it's specific to middle school and high school, and it mentions nothing about elementary school, yet we have curriculum that's being written about gender identity and all of these other topics that are completely inappropriate for K through 5. So have we looked into all of these options or all of the documents that are out there? I guess I'm addressing this to, I forget your name, I'm sorry.
That's all right, ma'am. Just the way, because you're held to 3 minutes, if you could make all of your comments and ask all of your questions, because otherwise with the back and forth, so if you have more questions,
I don't
if
have
you're
any
finished,
other,
that's fine.
I don't have any other questions. The only comment that I would have is that we've had several meetings. We've had several people come up for comments at these meetings about
Can
the
I
health
just ask that
curriculum.
everybody tries to keep the comments? It's hard to hear the questions if a lot of people are speaking, if you don't mind.
We've had several people address the board on this curriculum. We were waiting for the school meetings. We've had 3 of the 4, and here we are. This should speak volumes. This is serious. And there are a lot of people who are out there who I wouldn't say necessarily support it, but they're okay with it. They want their children to learn it. And my takeaway from them is that they want teachers raising their children. I don't want the teachers raising my children. That's not how I was raised. When we had the first meeting in August and Mr. Romano walked in here, I looked at him. I grew up with his children. He's been in the district forever. And I looked at him and I said, Dad's here. Like, he's here to protect our children because I know where he comes from. I know where these teachers come from. These teachers are not comfortable, and it's been clear. There were 0 board members, I think, except for Mr. Elko at the Wilson School. You could see the looks on the teachers' faces. They are not comfortable with this. And they don't even have a voice. And it's wrong. All of it is wrong. So whether this is mandated or not, there are several different districts. There are several different counties throughout the state who are doing different things. Fairfield District wrote a curriculum. They are preparing resources to provide to parents, and then the parents have the conversation with their child. And that's up to them to make that decision if they use it or not. Okay? Now I can tell you, I don't want to waste my 3 minutes, and I'm sure I'm going over, but okay?
You have one more comment if you could, and just get everybody else. You're more than welcome to come back a second time, but we want to give everybody a chance.
On the Fairfield curriculum, what I can say is, even if we had that kind of presentation here, the parents who would use it are the ones who don't want to raise their children. And the parents who won't use it are the ones who will opt out.
Justine Reyes, 42 Park Avenue. I just have 2 questions, or 1 comment and 1 question. My main question is, when we went to Lincoln the other day and got all the information, it's in conflict with other moms and parents who went to other schools like Wilson. They're saying that by 5th grade, they're going to teach IVF, sexual reproduction, whereas we were told at Lincoln that reproduction was going to be about sea turtles and strawberry plants, and it's very, very different than if you're talking about surrogacy, IVF, sexual reproduction. There's just no clarity. And we were told that every school would be on the same page, teaching the exact same curriculum.
So why were the Wilson parents given information different than the Lincoln parents were? The Lincoln parents, seemed like they did not want to touch on hot button issues, that they wanted to keep it very PG and safe for the children and age appropriate, which I wasn't opposed to. But then I'm defending it, and I'm seeing what people got, the papers they received at Wilson. It's very confusing knowing that we all have to be on the same page. So that's my question. And then my comment is just, or another question / comment, is if 90% or 95% of the parents opt out, what happens to the program? Is that also sending a message with the amount of people that opt out? Is that where people who have an issue, does the program then change? Or does it keep happening for the minority of people, most likely, who want to be in it? So that's just my question.
Why are we asking questions if we don't have any answers?
Comment? You guys, if you could try to keep it down because we want to try to answer. If you guys want, we'll try to answer some of these questions as they're asked. But what we're going to ask, I don't know if you just heard what I said. So what I just said is if you guys can calm down, what we're going to do is we're going to answer the questions. What we want to do is make sure, excuse me?
How can we calm down when you guys have nothing to say? You sit there and write it and you want to take days to think about it and then get back to us, right? But if it was your kid, it would be different.
Okay, so.
Make it make sense.
Okay, can you take a deep breath?
Yeah, I'll take a deep breath. Bunch of clowns. Your suits. Good.
Okay, so if we can all calm down for a second, what I'd like to propose, if you can't, sir, if you can't calm down, you could leave and maybe come back when you do calm down?
I'm not arousing anybody, right? Am I? Isn't it illegal? Am I arousing anybody?
No pun intended.
So,
I'm just saying. Freedom of speech, buddy. This is America. See the flag behind you?
so what we'd like to do is answer the questions after everybody speaks, but again, we want you to just speak within the 3-minute time frame, and then we'll try to address your questions. Okay, so Dr. Conklin, the last couple of questions, would you be able to address those?
I'll do my best. So there is a difference between 2nd and 5th grade standards. I think that might have been what was confusing. So 2nd grade is just about basic reproduction, and 5th grade gets a little bit more specific about the different ways that families can form.
And I can elaborate on that. So the standard for 2nd grade, by the end of 2nd grade, the state standard, again, this is different from the curriculum. So just to point out, one of the questions was about the different standards. So the standards are what are developed by the state. These are the end of this grade, this is what generally your kid should know. Curriculum is developed locally by the district and has to be approved by the board. The curriculum is a little bit more fleshed out detail of how you're going to meet those standards. And then on an individual school and classroom basis, you could have the individual teacher lesson plans. So there's kind of 3 stages to this: state standards, district curriculum, and then school and local based lesson plans, just so you understand the 3 different levels of this. So the question about the reproduction and why it might have been different at the school level and different understandings, by the end of 2nd grade, all students should know that all living things may have the capacity to reproduce. So this could be talking about, the example given was like sea turtles, the people aren't the only ones that have babies, basically. By the end of 5th grade, however, students are supposed to know that pregnancy can be achieved through a variety of methods. So in one of the lesson plans, when this IVF, for example, was brought up as an example, this would be an example of something that shows students by the end of 5th grade that pregnancy can happen in more than one way. So just, those are the state standards. I can also address one of the questions came up about the LGBTQ law. So just to elaborate, there are 2 separate things that we're kind of talking about when we bring that up. There was a law passed a couple years ago by the state, signed by the governor, that required integration into the curriculum, not just the health and family and sexual education curriculum, but the overall school curriculum about persons with LGBTQ and their contribution to society. Things like in history class, having students exposed to literature, for example, in ELA. That is separate and apart from the health and family education that we're talking about now. So while that law was, had different standards for kind of ideal lessons and things to be covered in various classes throughout the district at different age levels, that is a separate law than what we're mostly talking about today with the sex education, which has completely different standards. Again, the standards themselves are available on the Department of Education's website. They're about 66 pages, so I can go over all of them, but you're going to be here all night, and I don't want to do that. Those were the questions that I had caught.
The additional question, if there's a 95% opt-out rate, we'd have to really explore what the implications of that was for the individual grade, or individual class, individual school. I couldn't really speak specifically to what the plan would be. It really depends on what happens with that 90% opt-out rate.
And Dr. Conklin, approximately 90%-ish of the curriculum is the same curriculum that's been taught over the last few years?
I would say someplace between 85 and 90% of the curriculum was in previous standards. It was either, if you go onto the website, you can see the ones that are highlighted in yellow are new to that grade level, and ones that are highlighted in green were already being instructed but taught. The ones that aren't highlighted either way were actually existing standards before.
Okay, thank you. Sir?
Hi, my name is Paul Conklin. I'm 70 Park Avenue, Caldwell. I have 2 kids at Lincoln. And I would like to comment, hopefully I'll keep it under 3 minutes, on this content that we're talking about and the inclusion of it in the curriculum. The introduction of this content is a blatant attempt to indoctrinate our children and to take away our rights as parents. School closings and mask mandates during COVID did enough damage to our children, and I see this as a logical next step in the plan to control and poison the minds of young people. At the very least, this is a lot to throw at children following the nightmare of the last 2.5 years. At worst, this is a slippery slope that will open the door to the kinds of depravity we are seeing in schools across the country. Children and young people are receiving gender-affirming care, including puberty blockers and radical surgeries, often without the knowledge of parents. Activist teachers are using the introduction of this content as an opportunity to land and expand their agendas. They now have their foot in the door, and they intend to blast the door wide open. We have children literally identifying as cats in schools across the country, for God's sake, because they are confused by this. They are confused by what they're being taught. This is happening, and it will not end well. Why can't you focus on teaching our children the core content that will help them be productive citizens and compete on an increasingly challenging world stage? COVID negatively affected children's learning in profound and potentially permanent ways. Depression, drug use, and suicide are way up since the pandemic, and you all think this is what is important for our children. Is this what we really need to help our children get back to normal? This is the opposite of normal, that you claim you are just following orders. History is full of tragedies perpetrated by people who are just following orders. So if we don't want our children exposed to this garbage, they will have to be pulled out and potentially ostracized. We've seen enough division in this country already. The introduction of this content into the curriculum will only exacerbate that. It is not the responsibility of schools or teachers to talk to young children about their sexuality or about gender stereotypes or anything related to sex for that matter. It is an egregious overreaching. This is a parent's responsibility. It is your responsibility to provide them with a safe learning environment and to protect their innocence, not destroy it. If you continue down this path, you will see a mass exodus from your schools and a subsequent erosion in funding. Enrollments are way down nationally, and that trend will accelerate if this continues. COVID taught families across the country to be resourceful in terms of how and where they choose to educate their children. We have plenty of options that do not include this nonsense, and we will be sure to explore them. So my question is, how will we know when our children are to be pulled out? Because I imagine this is going to be infused into the curriculum in many subject areas, not just health. You talked about ELA, you talked about reading, you talked about whatever. How will we know when they are to be pulled out? And what measures will you take to ensure that activist teachers do not seize this opportunity to incorporate this into all subjects and push this beyond the boundaries of what is already included in the curriculum, which is bad enough? So that's my question.
So if you have decided to opt out your child of a particular lesson, and that's when they would go to an alternative setting. And in terms of activist teachers, I would say I trust teachers' decision to make sound instructional decisions and use appropriate developmental materials to address students' needs. And I wouldn't think that they would overreach.
I agree, Dr. Conklin. I think our teachers are good.
And I would also add the description or the program will be shared 2 weeks prior, so you'd have up that 2-week period of time to decide to opt out your child.
Good evening. My name is Lou Ferrara, 29 Dawson Drive, West Caldwell. I think everybody in this room, we're all here as parents, every single one, with one shared goal, to do what's best for our children. And in light of everything that's happened the past couple of years, to throw this on our children, our community, it's a tragedy. Seeing those test scores, you can look at some of those benchmarks. There's kids that are hitting 38% benchmarks in grade 11, and this is what we're focusing on. And I think that no matter which side of the aisle anybody in here is on, I think we can all agree that this administration, and I don't know if it's the board too, has not been transparent, and there's been a great deal of miscommunication. There's been people who have disagreed with me on teaching this content. No one has disagreed on how the administration has handled this. Everyone that I've talked to has said they've handled it poorly. I haven't heard one single positive thing. In light of that, the current board, there's an election tomorrow where 2 members are asking to be reelected. I don't know where anybody stands on the board on this issue. And if we could just get a simple yes, I support this, or no, we oppose it, I think that's a reasonable request for everybody in here to know prior to casting their ballot tomorrow.
I agree.
In addition to that, I think the board, it's evident that we're all still learning what's going on and what's being taught. Like, there's a lot of questions that still aren't really being answered. We still don't know what's exactly in some of those lessons. There's some of the stuff in those standards that were taken off from the state. Okay, so there's one for by the end of grade 5, masturbation was actually on that list from the state of New Jersey, which was taken off on our curriculum. I'm just saying, there is some ambiguity as to what's going on in these lessons. In light of that, I also think that it's reasonable that we not rush this vote for the board to vote on this in December if you don't know the answer to all the questions. Is it reasonable to ask that this vote be extended into, at minimum, January? We might have new board members that are serving. I don't know why we're rushing this. And all those things that we saw, I'm sorry, this will be the last thing I say, but all those things that we saw with student performance dropping, just remember, the reason why student performance is down is because we took direction from the state about COVID and how much of an effect that had. And we're still going down that slippery slope. So the 2 questions that I have would be, where does everybody stand? And I know not all of the board members are here. And then if we can delay that vote for January, or at minimum January. Thank you.
Hi.
All right, so as far as where the board stands, we have not seen the final curriculum at this stage. So I don't think it's a fair question, to be honest with you.
You could have an opinion, a general opinion.
Right. So as far as voting, that has actually been discussed with a few of the members of potentially pushing this back depending on what the curriculum comes out to be. So right now the vote is planned for December, but it may get pushed back.
What about?
When does the curriculum come out?
There's still meetings that are happening, so it still may be refined.
So we can't vote on anything that hasn't been out yet, so what are we?
Let me rephrase. There's still meetings that are happening, right, at the schools. 3 meetings have happened, 3 more to go. Okay. So those questions and comments are being internalized and potentially can help to refine what's in front of you. What I would ask, has everybody gone to the website and downloaded the curriculum?
Yes.
Okay. So what I would love, if you have it with you when you come up, I would be very interested for you to point out which specific topic or which specific number, because as I stated earlier, about 85% of the curriculum has actually been stuff that's been taught for years. So there is about 15.
That's not the stuff we got a problem with.
Great. So what I would ask you to do, great. So what I would ask you to do is the subject matter is here. So if you could point out as to what specific item on the curriculum that's here is actually there, that would be very, very helpful.
Where do you guys sit on this topic? Like, are you guys for this?
That's the answer we want.
All right, so I'm running for re-election. I most likely at this stage will support this. Is that what you wanted to hear?
Gender ideology?
And what about the rest of the board?
The rest of the board doesn't have to answer the question until they have the final information.
Will anybody answer that question?
You guys don't want to answer the question?
Come on.
Can we
How's
please,
that fair?
please,
You all know exactly
we
where
have
you stand on it. Why can't you
we
share
have
that
to
with us?
move on to the next question.
Of course you do. How convenient for you.
If, gentlemen, if you can't be considerate to the rest of the people in the room, I'm asking you to leave.
This is being considerate.
Jessica,
I'm sorry, just, any other people want to comment before, just because you're up here before?
only because it's on topic of the scheduling of everything.
Sure, go ahead.
Jessica Crown, 183 Forest. Mr. Conklin, the Jefferson meeting is scheduled for when?
November 15th, that's 6.
And that's the day after the next board meeting. So then the next board meeting after that is when?
December 7th?
Which is when the curriculum will be pushed to the board for a week for review by everybody, if that even happens, because it didn't happen the last time. And then the following week it will be voted on?
That could be the timeline, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
My name is Mandy Brady, and I live at 300 Central Avenue. I have a son who's in 2nd grade. I'm just going to speak as a parent here. My son has a learning disability. I had to jump through hoops to get him an IEP to help him with reading and math. But you want to teach my son about his gender and that he can change what he is if he wants to? Why are we putting this on 7-year-old and 8-year-old children? Why can't we just let them be children? Why does their world have to be so stressful right now after what we just came through? These kids, those scores that were up there, so you're telling me if 60% is okay, so what happens to the other 40? What happens to my son when he hears other kids talking about a class that he's not part of? How do I explain that as a parent? I've explained to my son what I feel is age appropriate for him. I don't need what you guys had said before. I just want to touch on quickly. You said that there's going to be standards, a curriculum, and what the teachers are going to teach. So all of that could be kind of different. They can take that curriculum from the standards and teach it how they want to teach it. I don't think that's fair, and I don't think it's right. And I especially don't think it's right for kindergarten through 3rd, 4th grade for these kids to be learning this kind of stuff. If they're saying it was 85% of the curriculum that was already taught, that's not true. When was gender identification taught for these kids at this age? Tell me. I would really like to know when that started.
I grew up in this community.
I mean, I'm just trying to speak from my heart and as a mother about how I feel about my baby boy, my son. Like, you guys are supposed to be the people that we vote in to protect these kids. Why? I just can't understand why you would think that this is okay. I really can't understand it for the life of me. As a mother, as an adult, as a parent of a child who has learning issues, why this is so important over teaching them what they should be taught, which is history, real history, reading, writing, learning signatures, learning, cursive. I hear that that's like trying to get tossed to the side. My son should be able to sign his name. He should learn how to balance a checkbook and do his taxes and work and be a productive citizen of this community. That's what our kids should be learning.
Thank you for your comments.
So hi, I'm Nikki Imperial Dillon, and I've grown up in this neighborhood. I went to Jefferson School and the middle school. And Dr. Conklin mentioned that he would hope that no teachers would overreach the boundaries. Well, in middle school, the executive functioning class, which I don't even know what that is, the teacher shared with her class that her daughter is non-binary. She asked them what pronouns they would like to be called, and she told the kids that her brains are half rainbow and half gray. And I also have a slide, and I didn't think I was going to be speaking, so I didn't make copies, but I would like, what is English language taught? What is that? Is it reading and comprehending what you're reading? Tell me what it is. What are we supposed to be teaching in language arts? Are we supposed to be teaching social justice, diversity, acceptance, empathy, individuality, and conformity? That wasn't my language arts. I was reading books. I just wanted to share that. And if you want to know the name of the teacher, I will be happy to tell you after the meeting. Because that woman should not be in a classroom. No. At all. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brian Jeanette from 7 Cascade Place. Dr. Conklin sent you an email. You gave me a response today, but I'd still like to address the Board of Education this email. Dear Board of Education, given the current high level of concern about the health curriculum that will be voted on by you this December, I'd like to request that the board pass a resolution to conduct a community survey immediately. Most of us understand that the curriculum is mandated by the state. However, districts vary greatly in how they are implementing the curriculum. The survey can ask people's feelings about what content they are especially concerned about. This information can then inform administration as they move forward with adopting a specific curriculum. Number 2, further, I'd like to request that a survey be conducted to other school districts on whether they created their own curriculum or purchased a specific curriculum to address the health standards today. I very much appreciate a reply, and today I'd like to ask for that survey to be conducted. This can happen in less than a week's time. We've been talking about the curriculum coming out. It should be addressed to the community what the curriculum should be, and the community should have a say in that curriculum. I'd like to see if anyone from the Board of Education would vote for this right now.
It's something we can discuss in private, but I'll be honest with you, I think the results of your survey would say whether people...
It's probably something that can be voted on right this second.
I'm asking a question. What are you looking for the survey to be?
The survey is to request information from the community as what the curriculum should be.
All right, the state will help us to define what the curriculum is.
No.
If the community would like, or parents...
No,
if
it's
parents,
up to the Board of Education to determine what the curriculum is.
Right.
And the community should have feedback in that curriculum.
I believe if the community, if the school parents community is interested in opting out of that particular lesson, they will be given that opportunity to do that.
They should have a say as to what the curriculum should be.
Yes, there are kids. You can't put exactly. There are kids, not your kids.
Yes, you do vote for us.
So,
I'm not expecting your vote there, buddy. Don't worry about it.
So the content doesn't have to be discussed here, but I'm asking the Board of Education to pass a resolution to conduct a survey in the community. Can you do that now?
I'm not prepared to do that now, no.
It's all board members are here except for one. You can't pass a resolution right now to conduct a survey?
Sir, I think the president has answered your question, sir, that he's not prepared to put a resolution on right now.
So the answer is no, you won't.
We will possibly discuss that in private session. If we decide collectively to do that, then we will bring that up in next meeting. But right now, I'm telling you, no, we are not going to do that.
And the reason is what?
Sir, your time is
Google
expired.
form available
Your 3
right
minutes.
now.
It's not available. No, it's
So
not
you won't
Sir,
bring that to a vote right now?
Sir, he answered your question 3 times now, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Not really.
It was turned off on October 28th, after 2 weeks of being available.
Hi,
We're
guys.
having them in-person meetings. We already had 3 in-person meetings, we'll have 3 additional. We left the Google form was available from October 14th to October 28th. At this point, it was turned off.
If I could share, the question or the form was available for 2 weeks. There were approximately 1,300 people who actually looked at it. We got about 50 responses.
Yeah, because you guys put it in as like physical ed and health. No one really knew what it was. It was so shady.
It was listed under the curriculum on the board website. It's the first topic on the curriculum on the board
It's very easy
website.
to pass over when inundated with emails from the school, especially when it's time, and it's a very short amount of time.
Sure.
This sensitive, maybe you guys can open it back up now that more people are aware of what's going on, even though there's still so much that is very vague on what's going to be taught to our kids. I really don't understand how, we don't have any content, we don't have any material.
Could you do me a favor? Could you come to the microphone, because it's not really supposed to be?
I don't want to, you know what, you were there first. I'll let her go.
My name is Taryn Kaufman. I live at 35 Marshall Street in West Caldwell. If by the grace of God we decide not to go forward and do a curriculum, I'm very curious as to the funding that our district will be losing by doing this. So could somebody please explain that to me?
Sure. Again, I just don't want to, if you have more questions or comments.
That's my only question, is how much money and how important is that to our district?
Mr. President, I can handle that one. So the issue is, I'll rephrase your question if it will. Basically, and I've been asked
Excuse me, could you direct the question to me, sir? Your answer.
Sir,
Thank you.
Ma'am, just I understand you asked the question. Again.
I know, but I'm over here. Eye contact would be nice.
I understand that, ma'am. The way this works by the board's bylaws and by Robert's Rules of Order, parliamentary order, everything's supposed to be directed to the chair. That's the reason why I look and speak to the board president. That actually is the way that the board's rules are supposed to be done. So I understand. I'm not trying to be rude to you, ma'am, but I understand your question, and I'm directing it to the chair, and I'm trying to speak loudly enough that everybody can hear me.
Can I go stand next to him so I can watch you? Would it be okay, Mr. Coughlin?
Mr. Cipolleti, that's Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Cipolleti.
Again, I will, I'm trying to give my answer
I
in a
just
way
feel
that
very
everyone can hear
disrespected.
me. I understand. I'm not trying to be rude, ma'am. The question asked was whether or not, or what is the amount of money. There is no specific defined dollar value for any violation of state law. For example, if this board were to decide, you know what, thumb the nose at the state, we're just simply not going to abide by this mandate, we're not going to adopt this curriculum. The lowest level penalty that the state could impose would be something like points off of your CUSAC score each year. That would be the lowest level. The highest level would be for this board to cease to exist. Let me explain. Again, that's unlikely, but let me explain. The board only exists because state law has created you. If the legislature tomorrow decided that this board or boards of education in general should not exist, they could pass a new law eliminating you. You're not a constitutional authority. You only have that authority that the state gives you by statute. So the state gives you a good portion of your funding every year by statute. The state can, under state law, withhold some or all of that funding if this board is to not comply. There is no specific number. Say, if you did X, you get Y penalty. The only time that comes up is a contracting issue. I don't want to get into that. If the board violates a certain number of laws, again, no quote threshold, but if you have a series of law violations, the state can take you over. As happened in multiple cities throughout the state's history, the state has actually operated school districts directly because the state felt that for whatever reason, the local district could not be trusted to operate its own district. So in terms of possible penalties, anything from points off your annual review from the state to some withholding of state funding, to imposition of a state monitor, to full state control, to simply eliminating you altogether. There is no direct tie of, if you don't do this, then this will happen.
But do they receive funding for doing this curriculum?
Approximately $6 million.
Thank you.
You receive $6 million for doing this?
Again, see, that's what, it's $6 million per year for state funding for everything.
I'm sorry. I don't want to go up there for 3 minutes. Can you explain, you just said $6 million is that per the county? Break that down for me, please.
That's for their pockets.
Our state, by the way, this is all volunteer, so we don't get anything. Our state, the funding that we receive from the state of New Jersey is approximately $6 million
Per year.
per year.
So they can take that whole $6 million.
Potentially, they could take that. Potentially,
So-
that's an option, I guess.
Is it like,
I gotta ask, I'm sorry, because of the microphones and there are people on, that were live streaming this, if you want to speak your question, you have to come up there.
Just to explain, since it seems to be some confusion, what the board president is indicating is that you receive as a district, and this is part of the budget presentations every year during the spring, the Caldwell-West Caldwell Public School District receives approximately $6 million annually in state funding. So these are things that are raised through state sales tax and other state revenue funding. The state takes in that money and then distributes it back to local school districts based on a funding formula. Caldwell-West Caldwell Public School District receives about $6 million annually from the state. For any violation of state law, the state has the authority to withhold some portion up to including all of your state funding for violating those laws. That is unlikely. For example, in this case, the state is extremely unlikely to just say, I'm going to hold back $6 million a year until you pass this curriculum. It is, however, something they are entitled to do.
Miss, do you have a question?
I'm just here as a mom.
Sure.
So, Lisa Mejias, 83 Westville. I'm having a hard time understanding process. So, I don't understand how we can bring these standards, bring these topics, which obviously come from the state, which is a much larger issue, and we understand that. You know, people like Phil Murphy that are pushing this through, and the radical left that is New Jersey now. Okay. How do we not have content? How can we schedule meetings, speak with all the schools, and not really provide us with, here is the material. This is the video I'm showing your kid. This is 40 minutes, yes? 40 minutes for health class? And the teachers get to do whatever they like during that 40 minutes? It's up to them? Yes or no?
I'm sorry, again.
40 minutes, 40 minutes is a health class, yes or no?
Well, again, ma'am, you're being, I don't know the schedule.
Just answer
I'm the
it.
lawyer.
I'll give
I
you
don't
my
know the
time,
schedule of
yes
this school
or
district.
no.
Yeah.
Questions, bro, if you're a lawyer. Let the board answer it.
What I'm trying to remind
Why
you,
is that so difficult?
again, is 3-minute time. If you could ask all of your questions so they could board
So
respond.
it's 40 minutes. What's going on in that 40 minutes? My daughter's in kindergarten. My daughter has values from home that we teach her, that I instill in her, that her father instills in her. She knows the difference between right and wrong, truth and lies. This isn't even factual, most of this stuff. This is mental illness, and we're making light of it. We're making light of it. You know, there's a lot of other topics that can fall into that category too. And if we responded the same way we're responding with gender ideology, we're really screwed. These kids are so damaged, they're so confused. My daughter is in kindergarten. This is going to be taught through 2nd grade, 3rd, 4th, 5th. So she's going to see this, and this will progress throughout that school. And then is she the one with her strong values, the one who is actually in her right mind, being taught by her sane parents that she's wrong? Is she going to be told by her teachers, by the administration, that she's the wrongdoer for not agreeing? This whole ideology, this whole theory that people can be whatever they want to be, okay? Okay? Regardless of how you think you were created, is incorrect. Okay? It's incorrect to basic science. So that focus to these children confuses them, and we have to do damage control from you. You should be their safe place, and you're not. And we're sending them there for how long now? 6 hours, 7 hours? And then we don't know. Say a teacher is very much so on board for this, and they could take it as far as they'd like to go.
My daughter should be the one that's being afraid now of being bullied by the one not fitting in, not going along with what honestly, these kids, they're so damaged by this. And we're seeing it across the country. It's very scary. And I'm worried for my daughter. I'm worried for her safety. This isn't safe. This way of thinking is not safe. How do I know she will be protected? How do I know her values will be protected? Or will she be taught by the guidance counselor, by the principal, that she has to accept everybody exactly how they are, even if they want to come to school, a boy in a dress and high heels and makeup on?
Miss, your time's up. We really appreciate your comments.
Are you kidding me?
Did you want to answer her before I go?
Sorry?
Did you want to answer her before I speak?
I'm not sure what the question was.
Yeah, yes, up to 40 minutes is the elementary school health lesson.
My name is Accardi, Treza, first name. I have a third grader and I have a high schooler. And I mean, my son is so stressed out that he can't read. He's so stressed out that, you know, he's suffering from, you know, so many other things from being out of school with COVID and so many other, he's lacking in so many other areas. Did something happen where this is becoming such a big thing that we're making such a big deal out of it? Did a child like kill himself? Is somebody coming into it? Because I think that confusing children is why we're having shootings at schools. You know, why we're having the violence we're having. Like, accept it. Just accept it all. You know, I have a cousin who's LGBTQAFG, whatever you want to call it. Okay, my cousin is gay. My cousin's gay. She was artificially inseminated and has a child now with her wife. She doesn't want you teaching her daughter about it. You understand me? She doesn't want you to. She wants to. Do you understand me? No. Please, because my son is in 12th grade and he wasn't taught this stuff. They had a gay kid that was a cheerleader and they all loved him. We don't have problems at the schools. You guys are creating problems at the schools. Why? Why are you sitting back? And I don't even think that you guys want this, most of you. So why are we allowing it? Why are we allowing it? We're not puppets. And I'm not going to stand to be a puppet. We took God out of schools. Now we're taking everything out of the schools. You know, there was a law passed in 1914 that says we have the right to implement religion into schools, okay, as an elective. Why isn't that a discussion? But we're going to talk about how people have sex? What does that have to do with my son? My son is in 12th grade. He can't sign signature. His name is Michael Scarmolino. You guys know him. He can't write his name. A fungal. You're Italian? A fungal.
Hi, my name is Andrea Turco, 50 Park Avenue. I have two sons at Lincoln Elementary School. And I've been at this meeting I have been a citizen at this meeting since last year, since 2021. And that was before I decided to homeschool my children for that year. And I'm here to convince you to follow the mask mandates, because I was really upset with the superintendent when they emailed me after I was trying to figure out what the plan was for the following year. And I could not get a word with them, but they were saying, well, the plan, we were selected to get $1.4 million for following whatever the government has says with the masks, and I was done with it. So I pulled my kids out, but I wanted to give the board a chance just to see if they will, or just not see our children and our as a commodity. Our children are not commodities. They're our children, and we have the right, not the schools, not the government, not whatever you guys think, but it's the parents. So please, We're all the parents that are here right now. We are all upset. Listen to them. Listen to the parents and just follow. And what was right for the kids. Our children need the best. You need them in our best interests. We don't even know what the curriculum is. We don't know what the consequences will be. So please just think and listen to the parents. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura Jeanette at 7 Cascade Place. So thank you for that last comment, because I think this is right along the lines of just listening to the parents and listening to the community. I'd like to just follow up about the idea of a survey. So the way I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but we have a state mandate, and I understand the needs and the importance of meeting that, because I'm not happy with it either, but because of this funding issue. But we have the right to create a curriculum and to meet the state mandate, and there's a variety of ways to do that. And what the Board of Ed is going to vote on December 5th, hopefully not that soon, is a curriculum. Now, we don't have any detailed plans about the curriculum yet. There was a Google form that I also agree was very hard to find, and I have a bunch of text messages going back and forth with friends about where to find it and which is the correct one, and you didn't get the turnout that you expected. So you also have a bunch of items that are highlighted. Why don't you put together a survey that now is going to be just about the health curriculum with those highlighted items, put it out to the community. This could be turned over very quickly, and I'm speaking to the Board of Education to pass this resolution, right? And I don't think I also would like to ask the attorney if this is appropriate for a closed session discussion for the Board of Education. I don't know procedure here, but it doesn't sound like this is a closed agenda item, but anyway. So create a survey of those items. Ask parents, how do you feel about this item? Are you comfortable with it? Yes or no? If they say no, have a drop-down box that says why, and have them list why they're not comfortable with that content. Then the Board of Ed, you could share the data. You could actually get data. I understand our superintendent, Dr. Conklin, you're very good with data. So we could get the data, we could share it with the community, and a curriculum could be designed that is informed by the feelings of the community, and it could still meet the standards. This doesn't seem like rocket science. It seems like transparency, community involvement, and here's a community that came together to address a very sensitive topic of something that's very new, that obviously a lot of people have concerns about. I don't understand the big issue here. Post a survey. Let's see the data. Design a curriculum based off of specifics from the community data, and then we can move forward. Can the Board of Ed address the president and the attorney? Is this appropriate for a closed session agenda item? Let's start there.
As I said before, I am not going to bring a survey to this board at this stage. We will discuss it in private session.
Is that appropriate for a private session?
Are you finished with, again, I don't want to cut you off. If you're done with your comments and questions, I'll respond.
No, I would not. Is it appropriate? I don't know the procedure. Is it appropriate for the Board of Education to discuss a survey in a private session?
There's one thing, I don't mean to get long answer, but I'm a lawyer, so I'm going to give you the long answer anyway. One thing to tell you when you graduate law school is the answer to everything is it depends. So it's not a straight answer. I'd say that if the question posed is, can the board do a resolution that says survey goes out, has the whole curriculum, drop down box, parents, are you okay with this? If not, no, insert why here. That specific thing, no, it would not be for closed session. There could be other issues. There could be questions for me, for example, would generally be for a closed session topic.
Right.
Legal implications of those things, contracts, that would all be closed session.
Okay.
Your specific question, no, it would be an open session topic.
Okay, so how can we proceed?
As I just said, I am not prepared to bring that question to this board at this time.
Okay, can you bring it next Board of Ed meeting in an open?
We will discuss it after this meeting, and if we agree, we will bring it to open session.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Nicole Madej, 8 Lombard Drive.
I just want to go to what the other parents are saying about how their kids are so behind on reading and math. I have a 4th grader currently at Wilson. He was at Jefferson for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. We just implemented an IEP for him this year because he has been so far behind. And I just want to, talk about how our kids in the 3rd and 4th grade have suffered significantly in this past whatever years from the COVID thing going on, and how so far behind everybody is, but yet we're so focused on learning about sexuality and this and that with this whole health and everything going on. Why aren't we paying more attention to the kids that need the help? Like right now, in my son's IEP, I still feel almost lost with everything because I feel like he's not even caught up to a 2nd grade reading level. At 4th grade, that is absurd. And not for nothing, 2nd grade for these 4th graders was a joke. I don't know about anybody else's kid, but my kid was sitting in his room, being watched, spinning on a chair, not paying attention. How are you getting a 2nd grader to sit in front of a computer? So while they're supposed to be learning about fundamentals and implementing reading and math, they're not. Now they're so far behind, but you're worried about shoving IVF and surrogacy and everything else down their throats. What are we doing for these kids that, instead of teaching them that, why aren't we getting these kids caught up to date? And I feel like all the stuff they have in place for that, because my son's been through everything, the reading rockets, the whole everything, you name it. Before we got to the IEP, we've done everything, and yet he's still not caught up, and we're still at the point where these kids are still getting all this stuff shoved down their throat. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is actually ridiculous, right? Is anybody else's kids behind? Like, your son, this one's son, that one's son. Like, I'm not like. It's not one parent that said this. This is multiple people that are saying that these kids are so far behind. And if you actually looked at the data that lady presented before, I'm sorry, I don't know her name, I apologize. 4th grade was actually the one, or 3rd grade I should say, was the one that went backwards. They actually slid backwards on that scale. They went from 50-something% to 40-something%. That's not okay. But let's keep talking about this sexuality and all this stuff that we have to teach these kids. That's not okay. Right? Like, it's not okay. Like, I need my kid to be able to read. Like, he's reading at a 2nd grade level at 4th grade. It's not okay. Like, on those, and that testing that they did, my son barely made it to the testing thing. And he's not, I feel like the help isn't there. But yet, let's force this down these kids' throats. Not okay. But that's not okay. I'm sorry, it wasn't really a question, but just a comment that I wanted to follow up with her son, like, it's not just one of us. It's district-wide we're having an issue with getting these kids even back on track with anything learning. But let's implement this. It's not okay. And you guys, I can't really see that you guys are okay with this.
They are.
That's okay.
No one's even saying anything. That's the problem.
It's ridiculous.
They think teaching anal sex to children is fine.
But my son can't read it, so he won't be able to read about anal sex.
Grown men, Simeon. You guys are grown men teaching
Sir, if you have any, excuse me, sir, if you have any comments, if you can, just because the people can't.
Worth it. Worth it.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, send your kids to our houses so we can teach them what we want.
Are there any other comments?
Hi, Alexis Warshagen, 9 Cascade Road. Is that it? That's all you need, right? All right. So my question is, earlier when you were explaining the, by definition, as per the law, it's not actually illegal to show this to such young kids. I guess my concern here is, as a parent of a very young, very sensitive little boy who's, I'm going to say easily manipulated. Right. I mean, I'm sure they all are. Is your advice from the Board of Ed that if, as a parent, I'm concerned with this program that you're suggesting opt out, which we all know that's not really an option because it will be taught throughout the day, are you suggesting that I quit my job and just stay home and teach him because that's the only other option available besides this absolute nonsense? I mean, some of this stuff that I've seen out there it might not be in 2nd grade, but it is straight up pornography. Yeah. And like, I don't know how that can be acceptable at any age, including a 17-year-old in high school, to be given from a teacher. If a man on the street stopped and said to my son, hey, let me tell you about my sexuality, nothing rude, nothing offensive, that man would be put on a registry list. But it's absolutely acceptable for our teachers to be teaching 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade about all sorts of different things. And if we're going to sit at home and think, if we're going to be completely honest here, and I have nothing against the teachers. I am a teacher, and I know that the curriculum is not the teacher's fault, but they do have to follow it, right? And some of them may not want to follow it, and some may love it and take it a little too far. My concern is, we're not going to know that teacher. We don't have a camera in the classroom like little daycares do. We don't get to monitor what goes on. So I have to trust my little kid to come home and tell me what he was taught that day, every day, and monitor what was taught that day, every day. And if there's a concern, what? What do I do? Do I come to you, or do I just not put him in public school because I can't trust you guys to decide what is appropriate and what is not appropriate? We can't say the word God in school. But you can teach a 2nd grader or a 5th grader about masturbation? I mean, where do you draw the line then? Do you know what I mean? If that's what we find acceptable now, then in 2 years, what are we going to be teaching them? You know? It's not okay, you know? And I'm concerned. I don't know how I'm going to financially stay afloat because my tax dollars go to pay for public school, but I can't trust you to allow my son to go there. So now I have to find alternative options, of which I can't afford as a single mother. So thank you.
I'm here again. Sue Marinucci, 32 Ravine Avenue, Caldwell. And I will address that. That question about the obscenity rules was me. And I know you interpret it your way, but no matter how you look at it, it's obscene. And I know people argue with me on Facebook, politics, or whatever. Grooming has nothing to do with intercourse or sexual relations. It has to do with twisting the minds of children. We are twisting little minds that are just trying to learn how to be friends and learn how to do math and learn how to treat people right. That's what my children learned in this school system. Not what you're sending now. My daughter went to Delaware and got her doctorate in PT. Science was her strong subject. To see those numbers up there, it's disgraceful. 30%, 39%, nobody should be happy with that. Okay, maybe we came from the toilet and we're getting better. It's not good enough. I'm a taxpayer. I don't have children in the school, and my heart goes out to all of you. And I will be here to support these parents. They need to come. They need to show up here, and you know what? Arizona did it. Arizona got their money back to take their children where they wanted. This is a disgrace. And no offense, I don't care what the state says in the mandate of the board, New Jersey education. They're going to hold us hostage for money for our children when we pay taxes that supports this whole curriculum. And it's a disgrace. That's what I have to say. My heart goes out to all of you.
Hi, my name is Alexis Martin, 42 Johnson. I just want to say that this whole conversation makes me really sad. I'm on the other side of the spectrum than I think a lot of people here tonight. And I want to come up because I want to say that I don't, that there's another side to this question of what's happening. I do want my kids to learn about social justice. I do want my kids to learn about diversity. I want my kids to learn about gender identity and sexual identity. I don't think it is indoctrination. I don't think that it is manipulation. I think it's education. And I do teach them all these things at home as well. And I think, I guess the reason why I came up here is to say that it really feels like there's a lot of fear-mongering going on about what the curriculum is. And I think that my request is that we're talking about and I think Mr. Elko mentioned this at the Wilson meeting, we're talking about 2 40-minute classes, right, per grade, 2nd grade and 5th grade. So if that information, if the information about what this all is was out there, I think the fear mongering and the fear of the unknown is what's causing a lot of this anxiety. I also want to say that I don't think that this part of the education is precluding reading and writing and math. I think we're all in agreement that those numbers should look better, but I don't think that this part of the curriculum is ignoring those other things. And I just, I just would encourage, can we get a much clearer idea of what these classroom lessons are, so that we're not like bandering around all of these terms about indoctrination and, and turning my kid gay and all these other things. Like that's just like feeding fire, feeding, fuel to the fire. Thank you.
So, can I answer the question?
Yes, please.
Oh, that's the question you want to answer. Holy shit. I can't. Holy shit. Sorry. That was funny.
Is it okay to answer now?
Yes.
There wasn't.
So the question was about providing more information. Part of the events at the schools was to provide that more information. In addition to that, based on parents' feedback and conversations with teachers, the teachers and administrators are going to be meeting over the next few weeks and develop several sample lesson plans. These sample lessons will include current resources and materials. The sample lessons will be posted on the website under the draft Healthy PE curricula. In most instances, when districts develop curriculum, they don't typically provide lessons or units within that curriculum when they're posting the curriculum. But based on the concerns that we've heard from the community, the district believes it's important to share these sample lessons and provide specific resources and materials within use those plans. As the board attorney explained, typically that's not something that's shared as part of the curriculum, but based on the feedback we've received, we think it's important, and we're going to have those posted hopefully by the end or middle of next week.
Thank you, Dr. Conklin. I'm sorry, Miss, if you could, just because she was waiting to go, unless you're okay with it.
I just want to say something quickly, okay? I'm going to be quick. Sure. I'm not afraid. I'm not a fear person.
I'm sorry, ma'am, just for the minutes, if you just name and address, please.
My name is Mandy Brady, and I live at 300 Central Avenue.
Thank you.
I'm not afraid of fear-mongering about gay. Listen, I don't care what you sleep with. You could sleep with farm animals for all I care. Really. I teach my son what's age appropriate for my child, for my family. When I get a curriculum saying that my second grader who cannot read, I had to jump through hoops to get help for him to read, is going to be learning about gender identification, is ridiculous to me. I'm sorry, it has nothing to do with being afraid of transgender, gender, gay, not gay. It has nothing to do with that. These are babies we're talking about. These are babies we're talking about. You want to discuss those issues, discuss it with children that are old enough and mature enough to handle this. Our kids went through enough over the last few years. This is just shoving it down babies' throats. They don't need this. This is not what these kids need right now. It's terrible how people are seeing this. I can't. If I have to pull my son out of school, like, exactly, how do you afford to do that? And where's my tax money going? Like, I just don't understand this whole process. I don't. I would really love for someone to sit down and explain it to me exactly. How do I Where do I opt out? How do I opt out? How do I know my child is not going to hear this from other children? These are all very big concerns. I can't. I'm so frustrated. I'm so disgusted. They're not going to answer me.
I think the opt-out question was already answered, so there will be information for you to understand how to opt out, and you will be getting, the lesson plan will be shared a couple weeks prior to the lesson action meeting.
I'm sorry, can I just go a second? Dr. Conklin, can you share the gender identity concept for second grade that you shared previously?
So the standard is about being able to identify the differences between boys and girls. So it's not a gender identification. It's really in the second grade specifically, lessons are going to be based around the fact, knowing that there's difference between boys and girls, and some girls' activities boys can do and some girls' activity girls can do. So there isn't this transgender conversation. It's just that students can do anything that they choose and have positive relationships with each other.
How as parents can we ensure that that conversation is
If you have a question, I'd ask you to come to the microphone.
My niece was on a football team. It was okay. They loved it. Yeah. I mean, she was awesome. They loved it.
And that's what this class is going to teach. That class is going to teach that it's okay for a girl to play football. And it's okay for a boy to play football.
But she didn't need you to tell her. She knew she.
All right, if I could just ask, please. I know it's difficult, especially because the questions are mostly here, but we do have people that are on live stream, and they can't capture the questions or comments unless you're up to the mic.
I have a comment related to that video. That video, they only showed us a short clip comparing what a boy wanted to do wearing a pink coat, a girl wanted to play with a fire truck. These kids can be whatever they want to be when they grow up. When they grow up, okay? There is plenty of time. The rest of this video, when I went home and watched it, while it's seemingly innocent, much like the first video we watched in the first draft, which was garbage, okay? Talking about sexual and gender liberation. In the first draft that nobody saw because it was pulled down from the website 4 hours after it was posted. You're welcome. It goes on to say that all of the old-fashioned rules you no longer need to follow that your grandparents grew up with. Guess what? I live with my parents. My children live with their grandparents. Guess what you're teaching them? They don't have to follow their rules. There is so much more to this than just these terms. And by the way, the trusted individual terms that are in the curriculum as well. My kids went to Catholic school. There was a course that every parent needed to take, and this is not a religious statement by any means, but there was a course, Protecting God's Children, and it was about all of the sexual abuse in the church and around that, okay? So there's issues everywhere, okay? But you hear these terms, trusted individuals, they're teaching, they're indoctrinating, they're this, they're that. It is not a fear of anything other than the fear of our children being corrupted by some BS. So please do not come at anybody about, oh, fear of this person for their choices or fear. It has absolutely nothing to do with that. And much like my new favorite person who was very vocal before, we're around people of all different kinds. This is not an issue. It does not need to be in the school. My point in bringing up Protecting God's Children is I heard from people who were interviewed how people were groomed, how they groomed their victims. And all of these terms, I tell my children, this is a trusted individual. This is Taryn. This is our trusted individual. You need anything, you go to her. I trusted my teachers because they didn't talk about this shit.
Hi. Sorry, I just wanted to say something else in response to the conversation that we're...
Again, ma'am, just for the
Justine Reyes, 42 Park Avenue.
Thank you.
I also have more moderate views, maybe less conservative. I am an artist. I am not opposed to scientific information on reproduction being taught to the children, but we have in this form second graders defining gender. And that is not scientific. What people are talking about, men. I also want to state for the record that I am diametrically opposed to racism, homophobia, all kinds of hatred. I am diametrically opposed to that. I'm also opposed to telling my boys, I have no problem with whatever they want to wear. Pink dresses, I actually don't care. But you're always going to be a boy. I'm not teaching my children that you can change your gender. Is that what defining gender means? Because now in society, there is no definition anymore for gender. And that is problematic, it's unscientific, and I do believe that is indoctrination, and I don't think it's correct, and I don't think many of the people in this community think that's correct. So I just want to say I do consider myself liberal, but I don't find this to be correct information. Men are men, women are women, men can wear dresses, women can wear pants. It doesn't matter what job you have, as long as you're not hurting anyone. And I also want to say that a lot of the information I'm not opposed to, anti-bullying, hygiene. There isn't a lot of stuff in here that is incorrect or wrong for the children to learn about. But I think a second grader, I want to know, how are you defining gender? We need to know what the lessons are. And I think it's very irresponsible that when we go to the meeting at Lincoln, the information we were given stopped at second grade. So here I am defending online publicly, hey, that's not what they're teaching. You guys are acting wild. That's not what they said at all. And now I'm hearing totally different things. And again, I'm not opposed to 100% of this, and I think more people are taking issue with the gender identity at the heart of it, which I understand, even being someone that is probably considered liberal to the rest of everybody in here. I think that's something that needs to be taken very seriously. It's a school, and it's not correct information. It's not scientific. It's not proven. It's just popular opinion at the moment.
Hi again, Lisa Mejias, 83 Westville Avenue. I want to follow up on that, on what she said about definitions. I want to follow up, Chris Elko, when you decided you wanted to ask Dr. Conklin about what's going to be taught to the second grade about gender identity. 2.1.2 SSH.1. If we want to be so specific, it's highlighted in yellow or green on this paper or whatever, it's still highlighted. So are any of you that are on the board or the superintendent, are you aware of the State of New Jersey Department of Education transgender student guidance for school districts? Yes or no?
Clearly no, because no one answered, so.
Are you aware of this document?
Miss, I'm sorry, can you repeat the document?
State of New Jersey Board of Education, the document is the Transgender Student Guidance for School Districts. And I'm going to read you some passages out of this because it's the guidance is prepared by the New Jersey Department of Education after a review of policies and guidance from other states and organizations, and in consultation with educators, counselors, school psychologists, advocates, and parents. All right, it's intended for the purpose of this guidance to help out the school district administrators take steps to create an inclusive environment in which transgender and gender nonconforming students feel safe and supported, and to ensure each school provides equal education opportunities for all students in compliance. And then the first point is definitions. Gender identity. Gender identity means a person's internal, deeply held sense of gender. All people have a gender identity, not just transgender people. For transgender people, an individual's internal gender identity is not the same as the gender assigned at birth. So when we're talking about the topic of gender identity for second graders to define gender, this is the definition from the state. that they are guiding you. And you're telling me boys are boys and they can play with a doll and girls are girls, but this is what the definition is. And we are defining gender. So am I to believe that this is the definition for second graders?
You don't know.
If everybody can try to be respectful for other people in the room and give them a second to answer the question, that would be appreciated.
Because clearly, it has nothing to do with how you created or how you were assigned at birth. It's how you feel. It's what you think in your mind. Apparently. So we're going to teach second graders. It's what
I'm sorry.
you think
I
in
think
your mind.
you had a question, sir, or a comment? No? Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
If you need to reference this, I'm happy to share it, or anyone else. But this is from the State of New Jersey Department of Education. And we do read as parents. We do read. We look into everything. So if you're sitting here telling me that second graders are just learning that boys have different anatomy than girls, it seems to be a lot more involved in that. And again, you're not being transparent with us.
Dr. Conklin, is that a part of our curriculum?
So I'm happy to answer, and then I'll hand over to the attorney. So we have the health curriculum, which is independent from the basically document she's discussing. That document is really there to help schools support students who are in the process of transitioning, who may be identifying as the opposite sex of what they were born as. So it helps us develop a plan locally to support them in school if they are identifying as a boy or a girl, or a man or a woman, and helps them navigate that in the school. Who would know what the plan is, who they would contact, who they would get support from, and then reaches out to the family. But that definition helps us to identify those students and then provide the specific supports. It has nothing to do with the health curriculum for second graders.
So you're saying that if someone in class raised their hand and said, or went to the teacher privately and said, I think that I am trans, that document is intended to guide schools on how to work with that child or individual?
Yes, and there's a plan.
But it is not part of our curriculum?
No, it's not part of the health curriculum. And then I'll turn it over to the attorney.
I think some of the confusion was, so the second grade curriculum standards, as Mr. Elke, you mentioned before, by the end of second grade, it talks about gender roles, right? And again, the example came up of girls playing football, boys wearing dresses, or girls playing with fire trucks. There's a difference between the definition of the word gender, which is in the second grade standards, and gender identity, which as a phrase is not in those standards. So the woman who just came to the mic and spoke and was talking about the gender identity guidance from the state. Again, gender identity is how someone individually identifies with respect to their gender. The second grade standard is gender. That word alone is, again, biological gender, boy, girl. So by the end of second grade, they have a concept of boys and girls, and what the curriculum standards are there to address is for gender, for students to be able, again, I'm answering the question. For the phrase, if you look at the standards, for the second grade, gender identity as a phrase does not appear. The word gender.
That's what I read from.
The form.
You are incorrect. The form says gender identity, second grade, lesson 10. The title is gender identity. It says define gender. Come on, guys. You gotta do
I don't know what lesson we're talking about. I can talk about for the state standards.
This is the copy. If do you want? This is what we're reading. It's not in the standard.
Sir, no, please, just make it. Just make.
We got it right there. It's right there. We don't need it. It's right there.
Please, just make it.
Excuse me, Lou Farrar, 29 Dawson. I think it's clear again, after hearing everybody talk, and I attended the meeting last week at Wilson, there are a number of questions that you still can't answer. So with that being said, I think it's completely irresponsible and negligent to even consider having a vote in December. And I think it's more than reasonable for you, as board members, to say to us that you will delay this vote. Now, on a further note, Dr. Conklin mentioned about getting that information out and said that typically districts may not provide unit plans or specific lesson plans. That's not true. There's districts all around us that they have way more information that they're providing to their community. And I think that it's more than reasonable for us to ask you to delay this vote. And I know I asked that earlier, but I don't remember receiving an answer. But I think that it's something that I think everybody in this room deserves to know the answer to. To say there's a lack of miscommunication would be a severe understatement.
As I shared before with another question, we will take it to private session, where I'm not going to bring that to vote to the board tonight. But I understand your concern, and we'll definitely take that into consideration.
Okay.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Just a question here. I'm assuming, this is Andrea Turco, 50 Park Ave. I'm just wondering, after the parents spoke out and everything, I'm wondering, what is the next step? What is your plan? Like, can you tell us some kind of answer that we would like to hear?
Are those all your questions, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we have the meeting scheduled for November 15th, 17th, and 21st. As I said before, we'll be posting sample lessons, hopefully by the end of next week at the latest. And after the 21st, and after we have an opportunity to review the questions and comments that come from the 15th, 17th, and 21st, the district will share next steps.
I have a question.
Sure.
So it says here, I'm Ron Picardi, 10 Park Terrace. A school district shall accept a student's asserted gender identity. Parental consent is not required. Does that mean that my daughter goes into school and she says that she wants to be referred to as a boy? Everyone has to go along with that. Everyone has to agree that she's a boy. And they have to think like that. Is that what you're telling me? Is that what this document states? And without my parental consent, no less, my 7-year-old, my 5-year-old, not to mention you want to teach them about anal sex by the 8th grade and how to do all these other disgusting things. But at least let's talk about facts and not facts. So are we going to teach these kids that men are women, women are men, whatever they want to be? Today they could be a woman, today they could be a man, doesn't matter? Is that what this document is saying, without my parental consent?
Are those all your questions?
Yes.
I can answer that. Yeah. So I think the document you're referring to again is the DOE's guidance to schools regarding transgender and gender identity. Is that what you're referring to, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Short answer is yes. The state says, and it's again state law. The New Jersey law against discrimination for about 2 decades has included as a protected class gender identity and expression as something that is protected as statewide, not just in a school context, but in any public accommodation or state context. So the law in New Jersey, at least, is that even individual kids, minors, have individual rights, not just through their parents. And so that one of those rights, again, at least in this state, is the right to self-identify their gender. So because they have that right, and then that is outside the school context, that is statewide by law, schools have to adhere to the rights of those students. Now, parents still have rights. They have rights to information. Secrets can't be held from parents. As I know is an issue that comes up. The guidance, if you read the whole document, basically talks about how districts are supposed to try to foster communication when students and parents may not see eye to eye about the student's identification. But the issue is that the districts, according to that guidance document and state law, are not allowed to kind of blow up a student's own rights in favor of the parents, right, when it comes to this issue. So the short answer is yes, a student can self-identify without parental consent. The longer answer is, again, if you read that full guidance document, it's a bit more nuanced than that, but the students don't forego their rights just because they're kids.
And if my daughter wanted to identify as a cat, are they going to have to agree that she's a cat?
And it's not bestial identity, it's gender identity.
So it's just male or female? Because I know it's a serious question because that's happening in schools.
I keep hearing that. I've not actually, again, I'm in 60 different school districts in the state. I keep hearing that comment, but I've not actually seen any identified cats.
It's called, okay.
It's happening. It's happening. What do you mean?
All right. Are there any other questions or comments?
Hi, Christian Francisco, 22 North Terrace. You had 3 meetings and are still unprepared, so for the next 3 meetings, hopefully they're not just sample lessons, but actual lessons. A plan needs to be made. All the problems tonight and over the last 3 meetings that you had are because you're unprepared. So that's what needs to occur. You need to prepare so the community is more informed. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments?
Taryn Kaufman, 35 Marshall Street. I'm just curious because I understand that the board here, I appreciate all of you like listening and sitting here. You know, it's hard. What you're doing is extremely hard, and I appreciate your ears. But I'm also very curious as to the gym teachers, the phys ed teachers that are actually creating this curriculum. Are they in this room to hear us? And if not, why are they not here? Because they're the ones that are legitimately creating the curriculum, mapping it out for all of the teachers to implement in their classrooms. And I personally don't see them. So I'm just curious. Like I said, I totally, completely appreciate all of you. And I know that your hands are kind of tied in many aspects. Yeah, I just would like to know where the actual committee is and why they're not here.
The meeting's recorded and they have access to it.
But why are they not here? They should be here.
I don't know what the purpose they would serve here. They can't answer questions.
Okay.
They're at the circus.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one very quick question. My name is Mandy Brady, and I live at 300 Central Avenue. I just have a question. Being that you're here as an attorney for the Board of Education, would I be able to bring my attorney to the next meeting?
Is that your question, ma'am?
Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, any member of the public, they don't even have to be residents of this town, can come to public meetings.
Like an attorney that represents me and my family, like someone that can get up and speak for me and speak in legal terms in ways that maybe he can speak your language, a language that maybe I don't understand or that I can't speak.
Again, ma'am, you can invite whoever you like to come to a public meeting. It's a public meeting.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'm asked for a motion to enter executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Upon the recommendation of Superintendent of Schools, we're accepting a motion to enter executive session. Brian, will you take the roll, please?
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All against, nay. Abstentions? Motion carried.